Welcome to another episode of the David vs. Goliath podcast. I'm Matt Dolman, managing partner of the Dolman Law Group. Today I have my esteemed guest, and this is like an A-lister. I got Alex, she's known as Alex Walsh. Alex previously clerked for the Supreme Court. I don't know how to say that without like a drum roll, but you clerked for Justice Breyer of the Supreme Court. Before that, Merrick Garland, the D.C. Court of Appeals. Then you started in the private sector as a defense lawyer at Paul Weiss, which is one of AmLaw's biggest firms out there, defending Fortune 100 companies in bet-to-stakes litigation. And you moved over to the plaintiff side. You moved away from the forces of evil, joined the good guys. And just this past February, you made national news in the first MDL trial against Uber in the Uber Rideshare passenger sexual assault litigation, which is a mouthful. But how did it feel to walk out of that courtroom that day with an $8 million verdict, holding one of the biggest corporations in America responsible for sexual assaults against passengers on, admittedly, at least I'll say this, I don't know why I say admittedly, but in my opinion, humble opinion, it wasn't the best fact pattern. That's not to be cavalier about what this plaintiff went through.
Yeah.
But if you're to pick out, like, you went to central casting for the best case. This wasn't the best case to put in front of a jury. It was a tough case.
Fair. Yeah.
To walk out with a giant verdict against one of the best defense firms in America, in Kirkland Ellis. They threw their best talent at you. You co-tried that case with Sarah London and I believe Deborah Chang.
Yes.
Your lead trial lawyer.
Yes.
And I mean, that's tip of the hat to you. Tell us about that.
Thank you. Well, it felt utterly fantastic. And obviously the best part of it was to be able to look our client in the eye, Jalen Dean, an incredibly brave young woman who I mean, she showed the most grace and courage and integrity to come forward as, a woman in her young 20s to stand up against one of the most powerful companies in the world and say, I will not be silenced. I will not be silenced, no matter how much you try to intimidate me and blame me for what happened and try to shame me. I am going to stand up for women everywhere to say that what Uber did in sending that driver to pick her up that night, a driver they knew was dangerous, a driver they knew was not the right driver for her. Uber went ahead and sent that driver anyway. And she said, no, that is wrong. And I am going to hold this company accountable. And to have the jury come back and say, we believe you. We believe what happened to you, and what happened to you was wrong and it's not okay. And Uber has to pay. I mean, it felt amazing.
It has to be one of the biggest events of your career.
Absolutely. Yeah, really it was. I mean, I have no regrets about I spent almost 2 decades on the defense side. I'm proud of the work that I did there. I worked with some of the best lawyers in America and I think, really honed the craft of litigation, but to be able to use those skills to fight, to stand up to power, and to fight for an individual, to fight for a young woman who came forward so bravely. Yes, it was definitely one of the top 3 highlights of my career, for sure.
It had to be. I mean, before that, everyone in the plaintiff bar knew who you were. You're already a big name, but that kind of makes you a darling of the plaintiff bar, like in the names of like Mark Lanier, and you're now considered one of the best. You're the choice to go to for the biggest cases. By example, they chose you among many other lawyers who could have easily tried. I should say easily. It's not the right word. It sounds, again, cavalier, but that could have tried this case. There are many other lawyers who have lined up happily to go try this case, and you were chosen, and you came home with a big verdict on what is, in my opinion, a very tough case to try.
Well, thanks. And it was a huge honor to try that case with Sarah London of Gerard Sharp, and Debbie Chang, who has her own law firm. I mean, these are 2 just powerhouse women trial lawyers. And I learned so much from them, and the way we work together as a team, and with so many other people who, helped support us during trial. Like it was truly awesome in the sense of inspiring awe.
I bet. Take those listeners out there who don't understand what a bellwether. This is a bellwether trial. What does a bellwether trial mean?
Sure. Yeah. So some people might be surprised to hear, maybe people aren't surprised to hear, there are thousands of women and men who have come forward because they were sexually assaulted during, when they were relying on Uber for a safe ride. They believed what Uber said, like, we can transport you safely, and they did not get a safe ride. They were sexually assaulted. There's thousands of people who have come forward to stand up to this company about that. And so all of those cases, many of those cases have been filed in court. And what happened is they all got consolidated or centralized in one federal court based in San Francisco in front of Judge Breyer. And so Judge Breyer has presided over all of the legal challenges that Uber's tried to throw up blockade after blockade to try to prevent these cases from getting.
Not to interrupt you, but this is Charles Breyer, the brother of Breyer, the Supreme Court justice that you clerked for.
The much cooler little brother of the two Breyer brothers.
The guy go from the Supreme Court to California. Okay, go.
Yeah,
you go.
Yeah. So Justice Breyer, who's retired from the Supreme Court, his younger brother is Charles Breyer, who goes by Chuck, who is a trial court judge in San Francisco. So Judge Breyer has presided over all of these Uber cases, are brought together in what we call an MDL, and there have been lots of legal wrangling, lots of discovery, all of that. And finally, Judge Breyer said, okay, we're ready to actually try one of these cases. Like, let's try one of these cases and use it as a model to see, how these cases will present to a jury and what issues will arise. And in the parlance of an MDL, we call that a bellwether. And bellwether is an old nautical term, actually, for sort of like a signal of like what the weather's likely to be, like what's to come. And so this term bellwether is used to describe what the first few cases that goes forward in a proceeding like this. So Jalen Dean's case was the very first bellwether in the MDL,
which allows us as plaintiff lawyers and defense lawyers to get a sample of what a jury will do with this type of evidence.
Yes, and what sort of legal issues may arise during a trial, and what the strong points are for the defense, what the strong points are for the plaintiff.
Understood. What does the future of the Uber rideshare litigation look like? I know I can't hold you to that 50,000-foot view. Where are we at? Where's it going?
Sure. Well, Judge Breyer, is a very experienced MDL judge. He's presided over other MDLs. He has moved this case very quickly, and he also understands the power and importance of trials. So just a month after we got that verdict in the first bellwether case, there was another trial. And this trial was the case Uber got to choose from all the cases that are filed, all the thousands of cases. Uber, the judge said, which case do you want to try, Uber? So of all the cases that are filed, Uber said, we want to try this one. And because Uber thought it could win that case. That was the case it thought it was most likely to win. And you want to know what happened? Uber lost.
I know, but the listeners don't. You go.
Uber lost.
Yes.
Uber lost. It was not a large verdict in that case.
And one would say it was an impossible case to win.
I believed it was an impossible case to
partner,
win.
Who's brilliant, William Smith, tried that case.
My amazing partner, William Smith, who is, one of the rising stars in the plaintiff bar, just a truly, really brilliant litigator. Honestly, because it was seen as just a very likely to be a loser, I was able to convince the leadership of the MDL that we should use this case to give our younger lawyers an opportunity to get experience. And then they agreed, and I went to William and I said, William, it's all upside. No one expects you to win. Mm-hmm. So see what you can do. And together with two of the amazing lawyers who represented the plaintiff throughout all these proceedings, they tried the case together and they got a plaintiff verdict.
kudos. I mean, that was my approach to dating. There's only upside, like in terms of asking women out, expecting to say no, and then if I got a yes, well. So let's segue for a second. You've had a pretty storied legal career. You started on the defense side. Before that, obviously, Supreme Court and Merrick Garland. You defended Scooter Libby at one point.
Yes.
Take us through that. Then how did you walk us through how you went from there to being a plaintiff's lawyer?
So when I first graduated from law school, I really, I was very interested in doing criminal defense work, and in particular, what we call white collar criminal defense work, because I like the idea of representing individuals. Mm-hmm. I liked the I have definitely like a law nerd side to my life as a lawyer, and these white collar cases often present really cool constitutional issues, and I, there were a lot of lawyers who I really looked up to who did this kind of work. So I got right into doing white collar work, and the first big case I worked on was being on the defense team for Scooter Libby, which was amazing, and it really gave me the trial bug. I was working for two senior lawyers who are two of the best trial lawyers in the country, and I learned a tremendous amount from them doing that trial with them. Coming out of it, what I realized is what was most important to me was getting to try cases and being in court and getting in front of juries. And so I did white collar work for a little bit, but what I realized was that doing products liability work was the way to maximize my time in front of juries, because those cases go to trial a lot. White collar cases often end up, there are plea deals made before they go to trial, because when what's at stake is someone's liberty, maybe they're less likely to roll the dice with a jury. So a mentor of mine, a woman named Beth Wilkinson, who is also one of the country's great trial lawyers, she said, if you really just want to be in front of juries as much as possible, you should do products liabilities. But I was at a defense firm, and so the way to do that was to defend companies being sued in tort cases and products liability cases. So I did a lot of work for pharmaceutical companies. I did work for some, consumer brand companies, and
shame on you. Now you're in safe space. This is what made you you. This is how you became an all-star.
Yeah, I learned a lot from it. Mm-hmm. I learned, I defended some very tough cases, and that really helped me to hone my abilities as a trial lawyer. But what I can tell you is that, it took a toll. It took a toll on, I went into the law wanting to represent individuals, to stand up to power. In the white collar space, it was the power of the government. But what I found myself doing is, representing some of the most powerful companies in the world. And what really finally made me say I need to make a change was around the time that there were a lot of the cases, a lot of the litigation in the products liability space were opioid cases, also cases involving Juul, and I decided that those were not cases that everyone deserves a lawyer, but I don't have to be that lawyer. And so I said, I wasn't comfortable working on those cases. And that helped me sort of realize, like, okay, I want to do something where I feel like I'm deploying my legal skills for something I feel passionately about. And that's what motivated me to make the change to the plaintiff side.
I mean, your pedigree would have opened up any doors to you on the plaintiff side anyway, but do you think you'd be as good if you didn't have the defense experience? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but
yeah, no, I hear you.
Better stated, if you didn't have that experience defending corporations, would you know how to take those corporations apart?
I think it definitely helps. I think the experience that I've had helped. The reason I'm hesitating in answer to your question is a lot of young lawyers ask me now, well, should I do what you did? Should I, spend 5, 10, 20 years on the defense side before I become a plaintiff lawyer? Do you think that's the best path? And, what I can tell them is that was my path. And I think that it it's worked really well for me, but I never want to discourage anyone from just going straight to the plaintiff side if that's where their heart and their passion is. And I think that, the most important thing to develop your skills as a lawyer is to find people at your firm or at other firms on litigation teams, find people who will take the time to serve as your mentor, who will take the time to talk to you about your goals and what's important to you and how to get opportunities and how to develop your skills. And, I had on the defense side, amazing mentors, people who taught me a ton and also like really, really went to bat for me in getting opportunities. I feel really strongly that, that is my job now as a more senior lawyer, to go to bat for younger lawyers and support them and help them get good opportunities.
So we only got so much time. We're going to jump around a little bit. Uber's main defense is the independent contractor defense.
Yes.
How do you take that defense part? And explain what the independent contractor defense is, because I kind of jumped in.
Yeah. Okay. So I think a lot of people know this, but the drivers, the people who drive on the Uber rides, they're not employees of Uber. They are Uber contracts with them. So they are, in most states, formally designated independent contractors rather than employees. And, why doesn't Uber just hire these people as their employees? Why are they instead contractors? Uber will tell you, oh, it's because we want people to have flexibility and we don't want people to have to work a certain number of hours. Maybe they just want to do this as like a supplement to their other job. Those may be some advantages to Uber's model, but the real reason Uber does this is by having these people as independent contractors rather than employees. One, Uber doesn't have to pay payroll taxes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge, we know, Matt, as people who run businesses and have to pay taxes, like that's a big expense for us. Uber doesn't want to do that. That takes away from
the size of Uber. Yes.
Yeah. It takes away from Uber. I mean, that's a lot of money Uber avoids. You know what else Uber also doesn't have to do? Give those people benefits. Those people get no benefits. So all the benefits that we are glad to provide are the people who work for us because they work so hard and they deserve, good health care and the ability to save for their retirement. Uber doesn't provide that to its drivers. It's also impossible for those drivers to organize, to the extent they're being mistreated by Uber. So Uber treats them as independent contractors. The other thing that the independent contractor model gives Uber is the ability to say, that guy didn't work. That guy doesn't work for us. He's not our employee. We can't be held liable for what he did. Like, shoot, it's so disingenuous, Matt, that it makes me very upset. And, we really poured that passion about that issue into the trial. And here's why, because it is so hypocritical. Because if you look right now at Uber's marketing, Uber's social media, what you're going to see is that Uber's saying, our drivers provide safe rides. Like, we will send you a good driver. Like, our drivers are really well vetted. Like, Uber will get you there safely. So when Uber's trying to convince you to get into one of those cars, because Uber makes a lot of money from each of those rides. When Uber's trying to convince you, they wrap their arms around those drivers. Those are our drivers. We're providing the rides. But as soon as something goes wrong on one of those rides, Uber's like, we barely know this guy. He's an independent contractor.
Yeah.
So how did we take apart that defense? We just laid that hypocrisy bare to the jury. We showed all of the ads and all of the marketing where Uber tries to pretend, where Uber says the ride is safe and we care about you and we're going to provide you a safe ride. And then pointed out how hypocritical it was for them when something went wrong on the ride, not to take responsibility for it.
Understand. So Uber has become like a thorn in our profession. They're outspending the Chamber of Commerce $2.50 every dollar the Chamber spends on tort. They're the biggest proponent of tort reform now. And you're obviously well aware of the Uber initiative in California to cap attorney fees at 20% after medical bills are paid, which basically would close the door on many personal injury practices.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I mean, it's a cynical attempt to entrench their power and to secure their profits. I mean, their CEO has made, an average of $35 million a year, like every year since he's been there. The profits that they're delivering to their executives and to, their stockholders are just like astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not willing to let to have those margins go down by doing what is needed to make their rides safe. So what are they doing instead? Like all the money that they're pouring into trying to like shut down access to justice and access to good lawyers, and they're using that to try to demonize plaintiff lawyers, and it's shameful. It's truly shameful.
Let's talk about another shameful company, and I'll be careful with my language because we're currently in litigation with them. But I followed your footsteps. You're kind of I wouldn't say a mentor, but I ask you questions constantly. I mean,
vice versa, Matt. I ask
one side of the relationship. I ask you questions. You just make me feel good about myself. But it's let's talk about Roblox. You were the first lawyer in the country. We filed after you quickly, but you're the first lawyer in the country to file lawsuits against Roblox for the sexual predation of minors on their platform, for the facilitation. They facilitate the exploitation, the grooming, and the actual in-person physical sexual abuse of children.
Correct.
What's going on in that case, and what is, obviously we're not going to give away our strategy, but how do you show that a corporation, let's be very vanilla about this, instead of being granular about Roblox itself, how do you show a corporation has done wrong when they claim that they had no notice of the wrongdoing? Or they claim that these are isolated events, or we're not aware that it's so bad in the platform. Like, how do you show it? What do you do?
Well,
Let's talk about Roblox. Let's talk about just a pretend company. What do you do to take a company apart like that?
You find the truth.
Well, of course.
Yeah, but
get back in the mentor seat. How do we show wrongdoing by a corporation when we can't show actual notice, but we got to show constructive notice that they knew and should have known?
Well, I got to say, I hear your question. It's a good question, but it's a question that's really doesn't speak directly to the Roblox situation.
I know I pivoted because I didn't want to start asking questions about, I can just be honest right now. I put my foot in it. It was a stupid effing question. I can curse on my podcast. How do we take apart Roblox? Well, yeah, I know what we're going to do. I predict meetings, but we can't talk about that. It's like the Japanese didn't call the Americans before the bomb Pearl Harbor. Like, I knew it was a dumb question. I couldn't just pull it back, so I had to go with it.
I hear you. No, I think that in general, when you're looking to take to show the wrongdoing of a company, first of all, like, what attitude you have to go into it with, and that is like patience, persistence, resilience, because often what these companies do, like, the facts are not on their side. Once we get inside their files, once we get to see their emails, once we get to put their executives under oath in a deposition, the truth will come out. The truth will come out. And what turns out is that they can say, like, we had no idea. It is very rare that when you actually get the evidence, that the evidence isn't damning. And I expect, with any, I won't speak to Roblox in particular, but the evidence when you
what I fell into, I created a trap.
When you get those emails and you get those people under oath, it's damning. So what do we have to do? We have to plan and be so strategic and deploy all of the talents of all of the lawyers who are fighting this company to get past all the roadblocks that companies like Roblox throws up against us. And, Matt, this. Roblox is so scared of the truth coming out. They're so scared of the truth coming out that what they're doing in this litigation is something that is so dastardly. And I'm okay going on record saying that. They are trying, our clients in these cases are children. They're children, who've been subjected to sexual assault and sexual exploitation. And rather than letting these kids, these brave kids and families, rather than letting them have a voice and present their claims in court, Roblox is trying to force them into secret arbitration. That's how scared Roblox is of the truth coming out. And so in a situation like that, what do? We do what, Matt, you've been a huge leader in this litigation, and what we've done together over these last years is pull together an incredible team, an incredible team that we lead of like really, really bright legal minds to shut down what Roblox is trying to do and to give these kids an opportunity to be heard in court. That's what we're doing.
Well stated. I could go on about Roblox. I think we do that at a later date. Just
Okay.
So and all my questions are basically a trap for myself to start talking about stuff we don't want to talk about. So Lewis, our producer, my producer, sent a question there. This is about Uber, going back to them. Are there lessons for others watching to better ensure their safety with Uber?
Yes, absolutely. I will shout it from the rooftops.
And you're the mother of young women.
Yeah. I have 4 kids. I have a boy who's 24 and then 3 girls, 21, 19, and 14. And they don't take Uber. We don't take Uber in our family. But if they were to take Uber, what they know is do not get in an Uber alone. Do not get in an Uber alone. Don't get in any rideshare alone. Call your mom instead to come pick you up. Sometimes sometimes that's not an option. I get that, but don't get in an Uber alone. Please don't do that is the advice I give.
What could Uber have done to make their cars safer? What didn't they do?
Put cameras in every single car. Uber knows, and it came out in the first trial, the first case that we tried. Uber knows, has discussed internally for years what an important and powerful deterrent cameras are, dash cams. We know, I get in taxi cabs all the time. They've got cameras on, and that is a deterrent. It protects the driver, it protects the rider, and Uber won't do it. They will not mandate cameras in their cars. And you want to know why?
It's expensive.
Yes.
Not expensive, but you put
it comes back to this independent contractor issue. They're scared that if they put cameras in the cars, that it will be harder for them to call these drivers independent contractors. Because under the law, if Uber is supervising the drivers, is monitoring them, some courts will say, well, you can't call them an independent contractor. They're not actually an independent contractor if you're monitoring them all the time. So they don't want to mandate those cameras.
I didn't know that.
Because then they'll have to pay them benefits and they'll have to pay taxes like the rest of us have to pay.
Another question is the background checks that they did are lax.
Yeah. I mean, yes, they...
From what I heard they don't go through typical, it's not your full scrub law enforcement background check on someone. It's just using public databases.
Yes, they could. They're much more robust databases that they could use. In addition, what they could do is, imagine if you wanted to make sure that you have the safest people in those cars, that may be going to pick up a young woman, Uber advertises to young women who've been out on the town and need a safe way to get home. If you're going to advertise that that's like to those people, if you're going to claim that that's safe, you should do everything you can to make sure you have the safest drivers in the car. Uber doesn't, when they're signing up a driver, they don't look at the person's social media. They don't conduct interviews. They don't ask for references. They don't ask for a resume. For certain crimes, they only look back like 7 years. They don't do all the things that you would expect a company that cares about safety to actually do.
Is that similar to Roblox? If you're going to put a platform out there and claim it's safe for children 6 and above, you shouldn't allow adults to speak to children unabated on a platform all day long, every day?
Or how about this? I mean, some of our clients, the predators who went after them were registered sex offenders. Mm-hmm. What is Roblox doing allowing registered sex offenders to come onto their site?
And how is that not foreseeable too? And forget about the content. It's where I don't want to geek out with you right now, but it's not about the content because your defense is always Section 230. It's about the construct of their platform. Is never
exactly. It's like, why not have identity verification? Why not make, if you're coming onto the platform, you need to say who you are and run the most basic checks on these people. And if the person is a registered sex offender, don't allow them on a gaming platform that is designed and built and marketed as being safe for kids. Don't do it.
Well said. I could geek out with you for like a full hour. My producer keeps telling me to keep it to a half hour, and I see him, and I've got pretty good lessons from you. So I'm going to wrap it up pretty quickly, but I do want to point out that it's an honor to have this opportunity. I personally think that if I had to give, something happened to me, I actually told my wife this. The first call you are to make is to go into my cell phone and look for Alex Walsh many times. And so is Becky, my ex-wife, who is one of my good friends, my business partner. They know to call you. I think you are one of the top 5 lawyers in the country.
Well, thank you, Matt.
Good. You're one of my heroes. So
that means a lot.
Litigating the cases against Roblox just because I knew you were involved, and I thought it was going to go well. And it would be. I thought I'd learn a lot by watching one of the best lawyers. I mean, I'm 48 years old. I've litigated for my entire career. Like this, I'm not learning anything new, except I'm learning from someone much better than myself. And when you work in a small circle, like when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So when you're a trial lawyer in Tampa, Florida, you reach out to mentors who do car accident cases. And I started evolving past that and doing a lot of predation cases, but I never had the opportunity to work with somebody on your level. So it's been quite an experience, quite a ride. I'm not everyone's flavor of ice cream, but we've gotten along, and you're an awesome lawyer, somewhat of a mentor because I constantly lean on you with questions, although it's kind of, like I said, it's a one-way street because you don't really ask me questions. You just give me back answers.
Okay. I'm going to tell your wonderful producer has to allow me some space to say that it is an honor to be on your podcast, and it is, you need to accept this, that I have learned a tremendous amount from you. And I think we are a really, really good team together. Matt, you have dedicated your career to representing people who really need you, and to people who have been hurt, and to survivors of sexual violence. And, you have such a wealth of experience and so much sensitivity when it comes to these issues. I have learned a tremendous amount from you. I truly have. And I'm so glad that we've come together as a team.
Yes, it is a great team. And, all the other lawyers are involved in the Roblox, whether it's Sarah London, who's awesome, I got to know, and Brian Alstock, and all the other folks, and Marty Gould, and Lewis Cooper and Joe Masterman, who've been on my podcast before, are all just like some of the best lawyers in the country. So it's been quite a ride. But if I had to put someone at the top of that mountain, I'd put you. So it's an honor. So I'm going to wrap it up there. This could be the Mutual Admiration Society. But I have all these things I was going to. You know what I did today, by the way?
Yeah.
I went on Claude. I'll never do this because I could just shoot the shit with you, and I do it for everybody else. I went on Claude, and I put together. All I wrote was, I am interviewing Alex Walsh today, and put your. I'm going to send this to you, and I put your bio from Manipul Weiss on there, and then it found so much information on you. It goes 4 pages of just questions to ask you, which I don't need a cheat sheet. I just use it as an outline if I had to go anywhere, which I didn't touch on any of this stuff because there's enough time. But I thought you find that interesting. Then I did myself and had only 1 page. I was like, oh, man.
Well, I'm a lot older than you are, so.
Not really. Pleasure. It was great having you, Alex. And we'll have you again because there's a lot more I'd like to get into with you. And you are a legal nerd. That's why I go to you with a lot of my questions. And you're awesome. So thank you very much for coming on today. And I appreciate my audience. And have a great day. This wraps up another episode of the David vs. Goliath podcast. I'm Matt Dolman. She's Alex Walsh. And have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. I loved it.